It's January 2022, time for New Year's resolutions. And I've got a New Year's resolution for you, getting your Google Drive organized. I'm Tina Nunez with EdTech, and I have some tips and tricks for Google Drive organization. Here we go. So the first place we're going to want to start is looking at Google folders.
My first tip for keeping your Google Drive organized is to have very few files in your root drive and have all of your files here in folders to make it easier to distinguish them within your drive. If you have less files here, it makes it way less daunting and much easier to find your files. This brings me to my second tip, to create a folder within your drive that functions sort of as your junk drawer, where you can put any miscellaneous or extra files that you're not sure where to place within any of your root folders. Another reason to keep folders in your drive, it's much easier to right-click on a folder and share that entire folder with all the contents than individually sharing every single file. Now let's talk about how you can create your folders to make those files even easier to find. Tip number 1 is if I go here and I create a new folder, it's going to be grayed out here. If I right-click on this folder, I can change the color. Now, the way that I used to like to distinguish all of my files were to color code different subject areas. So here within my science folder, you're going to see all of those subfolders are also going to be a different shade of green. What you may also notice is that I have used emojis to very easily distinguish my different folders. To add an emoji, it's better to go back to the folder, right-click on it, and rename that folder. You can right-click and add emojis or symbols. Depending on your device, you may have to enable your emoji keyboard. Once you've selected that, you can select any image you would like for that particular folder. Google Drive orders all of your files from left to right. If we change our view to list view, it's going to order them from the top down. So another way I have organized my files is to use numbers at the very front of my folders if I want them to be in a specific order. So my folders would always be in order with ELA first, moving down to science, which was at the end of the day.
Now that we have all of our folders organized, we're going to want to talk about the files that go inside those folders and how you can better organize those.
So the first tip is to be very mindful of where files are created. When you are inside a folder, you go to File and you create a new file here, it's going to place that new file inside this folder. The other tip I have is naming conventions. So I'm going to go down into these folders. And you're going to notice that all of my files for science, I began with the words SCI and then a dash. Anytime I wanted to do a Google search for SCI files that I was looking for, I would know that I would be looking for science. My next level would be the name of that particular file, and then I would usually put the dates at the end of the file. If you go back here to grid view, you're going to notice that some of the names get cut off. So if you have a really long date, it's going to be hard to tell the actual name of the file. Google Drive has great searchability. If you follow those naming conventions and you go here to this icon, you'll be able to narrow down that search criteria. It will very quickly pull up any of those options that I would be looking for. And finally, we're going to be talking about how other drives can be used to organize files that have been shared with you. To check to see who owns a file, we're going to go back to list view and you'll be able to see all of the ownership here. Now here within shared with me, all files will default to be organized by the share date. What you can do is right click on a file and then you can add a shortcut to your drive. Determine where you would like that file to go. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a file here in your drive that you can actually move and organize within folders. File. You're going to know it is a shortcut file because it has a little arrow here on the side of the file icon. That means anybody who makes changes or updates to the file, you will have changes and updates to that file. But do note that if whoever does own this file decides to delete it, you will no longer have access. My final tip is to configure the settings The first thing I always like to enable by checking it off is to convert any uploaded files to Google Docs format. That means Microsoft Word files will automatically convert to Google Docs when I upload them. The next thing you might like to enable is the ability to work offline. Now know that if you do want to work offline, you're going to have to install the extension. You can choose how compact you would like your files and folders to be within your drive. I like to keep my drive pretty clean, so I don't want those suggestions up at the top. And I'm going to go ahead and save all of those settings, and it's going to get rid of those ones on the top, and it will automatically convert any new files that I put in.
Hopefully this quick tip has given you some ideas to get your Google Drive to spark joy. Don't forget to subscribe for more EdTech quick tips.